The sooner you realize this, the faster you're going to adapt to expat life. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 life-changing lessons that I learned moving to London as an expat from Singapore and living there for an extended duration of time. If you stick around till the end, I'll be sharing with you one valuable tip that you are going to want to take away, especially if you're thinking about being an expat, so do stick around for that. With that out of the way, let's jump right into today's video. So after completing my degree on Zoom University, I moved to London to start my career in banking. And when I did that, it was the first time in my life that I was no longer part of a majority group or an in-group. And that brings me on to the first lesson of the day, which is you are truly on your own. Now, as an East Asian Chinese Singaporean, it was the first time in my life being a minority in someone else's country. It was also something that I noticed acutely, especially when I worked in a very domestic British bank. On top of this, I remember going to work on a daily basis and responding to feedback that I needed to do more to fit into the overall culture. In the UK, people tend to make small talk a lot more at work, especially while I was on my relationship management rotation within the bank. Now, this was in contrast to what I've seen in Singapore, where people generally tend to keep their heads down and get their work done rather than focus on small talk. This is just one area where I realized I was truly on my own, having to learn all this from scratch alongside learning all the nuances of British culture itself. Now, this lesson goes way beyond just day-to-day work culture though. Back in my time in London, I worked across several different stints with multiple rotations within the same bank across different teams, as well as several startups. And this is one story that fully ingrained that you're truly on your own and you have to look after yourself. One day while I was working my job, I was called up to be told that my colleague who had actually brought me into that firm was being laid off. The remarks were that he had done a really good job, however, due to market conditions, he just had to be let go. Now, this guy was an Italian and he had been working there for about a year. The rest of the firm was primarily made up of Eastern Europeans from the same country. Now, without going into too much specifics and without speculating too much on their decision, within a couple of weeks, a replacement for this colleague had already been found, and no surprises to guessing where he was hired from. Yes, he was hired from the Eastern European country that the rest of the firm pretty much came from. Now, whether this is in-group bias at work or it is cutting costs is anyone's guess. However, as the only person from my own background working in that firm at the time, this truly brought home the message that I was on my own right out here in my expat life and that I needed to watch my own back at all times. In terms of actions, this could include taking up various side hustles or bolstering your income by saving up and using that capital to generate additional yield while you are still working. All of this is quite a bit of active work, which brings me on to the second lesson of the day, and that is the fact that you cannot afford to be passive if you are an expat in a foreign country. Now, this applies to both conflicts as well as seeking opportunity. Growing up as an East Asian within a very Asian household, we are generally passive and conflict avoidant. One of my career mentors, as well as the person who brought me into debt syndications, pulled me aside one day at work and told me, hey, look, you're really capable, but I need you to be less passive. And this was in relation to things like volunteering capacity when available and being more vocal during team meetings. Now, this was one key cultural shift that I had to adapt to, but I realized that this was truly a life lesson that went beyond the meeting room and into other areas of life. Now, this includes things like conflict. We tend to be conflict avoidant by nature, but a lot of the time, if you are in a foreign country, you're going to have to come to terms with standing your ground, making requests that may not be in the other person's interests, and setting boundaries. The other area that I realized this was particularly applicable to was in the form of seeking opportunities. Now, this includes not only looking for new business opportunities to get into, or indeed side hustles. This also applies to solving your feelings of social isolation, especially if you're moving without a circle of friends there already. This meant actively setting aside time on weekends to go for multiple meetups, as well as investing in that meetup group itself in order to start making some consistent friends. So with these lessons, I started to be more active at work, more active at seeking out side hustle opportunities, opportunities as well as career opportunities, and finally also started setting up a pretty good friend group. However, there was still one more problem, which is where the third lesson comes in, and that is going to be that everything is temporary, especially as an expat. Now, this was already clear to me from the fact that I was on a rotational program that rotated through various teams within a bank, as well as seeing colleagues come and go. But what really drove this point home was noticing how transitory a city like London actually is. Now, this may apply to other cities like New York, and basically what you need to come to terms with is that nothing really is permanent. You really have to accept that everything is temporary and not get too attached to a career, a situation, or a group of people. That doesn't mean that you can't form meaningful connections though, so there's that. So there you have it. These are but 3 of the many lessons I learned as an expat, moving from Singapore to the UK. If you are interested in going on a similar journey and experiencing all of this for yourself and would like to find out the best way to go about doing this, I am doing coaching calls that you can book using the form down below. Now, if you are looking at the UK specifically and are considering a move there, then you are going to want to make sure that you're prepared. And for that, you're going to want to check out this video over here. With all that being said, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.